What's up? Welcome to Boston. This city is a real ripper here, full of history. Did you know that at one point Boston outlawed Christmas? Then there was this one time some British soldiers fired into a crowd of colonists. Locals came back by tossing all of the imported sugar and tea into the Boston harbor. You know what that tells me? That tells me this town's got moxie. So let's get in here and take a look around. Go Swats. Boston is the largest city in New England. For those that don't know, New England is not one specific place, but more of an area made up of 6 northeastern states in the United States. Back in 1614, Captain John Smith thought it would make the northeast region of the United States sound a little more attractive to settlers by naming it New England. Now, Boston got its name from original recipe England. Many of the first settlers from Boston, England just liked where they came from so much that they just kept using the same name. This Boston's nickname is Beantown, and that literally comes from beans. Some of the earliest settlers would bake beans with molasses mixed in. One of my favorite things to do when I go into a new town is to go on a walking food tour. That way you can exercise while you eat and you get to check out buildings like Boston City Hall, voted ugliest building in the world. One of the more iconic buildings in the world, Fenway Park, home of the Boston Red Sox. Back in 1912, they opened the doors to this magnificent stadium. Now let's put that in perspective. You know what else happened in 1912? That's when the Titanic hit the iceberg and sank. That's how old this park is. Rose and Jack never got to experience a hot dog at a baseball game. And something else that you get to take home other than heartburn, if the ball goes into the stand at any time, you get to keep it. Making people go crazy. Whoa! The Green Monster! Wow, that was a lot of excitement. Let's go find some... Wait! Let's go on that walking food tour. Boston has so many iconic historical sites, like the old State House, but then there's also the Bull and Finch Club, better known as the Cheers Bar. If you're around in the 80s, every week, Sam, Diane, Carla, Cliff, and Norm would make their way down these stairs and just hang out where everybody knows your name. Now it's actually a public bar. You can go there and might be able to get some Boston baked beans, baby! I'm not gonna follow just anyone around. I have some rules. You have to know your way around town. You have to know how to eat. And maybe, just maybe, just a little politically incorrect. Here's our guy. This is Anthony. He was born and raised in Boston's North End neighborhood, and he took us to places like Monica's for pizza. We'd go into the different delis and the different small grocery stores and stuff, even these bakeries here. Oh, and don't get me started on these sandwiches. So good. This is the longest running, continuously running restaurant in America, and this is where they started handing out toothpicks. And if you like seafood, everyone was telling us about Neptune Oyster, and let me tell you, when we finally found it, it was so worth it. Okay, since we usually talk about food, I want to talk about the dinner that I just had at Aqua Pazza. Aqua Pazza is Italian for crazy water. But the crazy thing was the branzino alla plancha that I just had. They stuff it with citrus and some fennel, and they serve the entire fish. I hammered through that fish, so much so that the waiter took it back to the chef, and the chef said, "Where is the head? Aqua Pazza. Get that in your life." Some of the places that we saw during our tour was Paul Revere's house. A lot of the churches around town have very famous people buried there, like the guy in that Beastie Boy song, the guy that makes beer, and others that were victims of the Boston Massacre. There's a big reason why we decided to walk around Boston, and it's the streets. If you look at a map of Boston, it looks like a bowl of spaghetti. There's so much to see, there's so much to do, but if you're not careful, you're going to get lost. The streets were designed by horse and carriage, so they're winding and narrow, and that's why we're gonna head to the park. There's so much to do and see around these public parks, but the cutest sculpture is Make Way For Ducklings, made by Nancy Schoen back in 1987. It's based on a kid's book by Robert McCloskey, and 4 years later, a copy of the sculpture was installed in Moscow as part of a treaty between Russia and the United States. Across the street from the Boston Commons, you have the Massachusetts State House, also nicknamed the New State House. This is the capital of Massachusetts. You might be wondering about the old State House, and this is it. What they did with it is they turned it into a subway. Boston built America's first subway in 1897, and from what I learned, it only went a handful of blocks and it was really expensive to get on. And what we've learned is that even back in 1897, people did not want to sit in Boston traffic. A quick note about Boston Commons. It was established in 1634, making it the oldest public park in the United States. I think the people of Boston have done a magnificent job of keeping historical gems on display, even while developing more modern buildings like the John Hancock Tower, which predicts the weather. No kidding. A series of colored lights on top of this building let the residents know if it's going to rain, snow, be cloudy, or even clear. So if you like being on the water, or you like really good food, and maybe even a history buff, you're going to love Boston. So don't I.